Hello class, welcome to Algebra Lesson 9.1, which is all about solving quadratic equations using graphs and tables. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to use graphs and tables to find solutions of quadratic equations. Now, a quick little side note, these videos, I put them out on YouTube. If you're someone that is not my student and you're watching this video and hoping I'll teach you how to use a graphing calculator to solve these, that is not what I'll be doing in this video because my students don't have those yet. Okay, so this video is not for you if you're someone looking to use a graphing calculator. All right, let's jump right into example 1, recognizing solutions of quadratic equations. So why are the x-intercepts, remember intercept means where it crosses something, right? So an x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis on a graph. Okay, so why are the x-intercepts of a graph of a quadratic function important to the solution of the related function? Sorry, I just realized that there is a little typo there. Function. I made it worse. Okay, so letter A. Find the solutions of the quadratic equation x squared minus 16 equals 0. So if I look at this problem and we are talking about this graph. I'm just going to get rid of the shade. Okay, let's talk through this. I know there are a lot of words on the screen right now. So if we're finding the solutions are the x-intercepts. Solutions of a quadratic equation are the x-intercepts. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 1, sometimes there are none. Okay, and so the way that you can tell how many solutions a graph has just by looking at it is how many times does it cross the x-axis. And wherever it crosses, that is considered a solution. So if we look at this graph here, this is the graph of x squared minus 16. Okay, so you can see the graph crosses at a negative 4, 0, and a positive 4, 0. Those are my two solutions. Okay, so if you're ever asked what are the solutions of a quadratic equation, it's wherever it crosses the x-axis. And for those of you that are like, I still don't understand what a quadratic equation is, just a couple of big words. Well, refresh your course. A quadratic equation is an equation of the second degree. That means a quadratic equation has to have an x squared, or whatever the variable is, squared term. Okay? Quadratic is when you have that second power somewhere, that second degree. Okay? And then when you hear the phrase related function of a quadratic equation with 0 on one side and the quadratic expression given on the other side, again, that's a lot of big words that you're probably like, Ms. Johnson, what is it saying? Yeah, this is the related function. Instead of it being equal to 0, they replace it with f of x. That's what all of these words mean. Okay? Related function, f of x equals. Equation, 0 equals. Okay? All right, so that is really the main takeaways here. Okay? And the last thing that I'll share with you is that that solutions are sometimes called the zeros of the function. And that's because they give you 0 for y. Okay, so solution is the same thing as zeros of a function. Okay. Then let's look at letter B. So this time you can see we have find solutions of x squared minus 14x plus 49 equals 0. So you graph the function, which is f of x equals x squared minus 14x plus 49. It's a related function because it says f of x instead of 0 equals, okay, yada yada, same thing. But our solution here, you can see it only crosses the x-axis once. And some of you are going to say, technically it doesn't cross because you like to, look at the technicalities. And you're right, it doesn't cross. It doesn't go below the x-axis. It hits the x-axis and then stops. So intersect means it just has to touch it. Okay, it doesn't have to go all the way through onto the other side. It just has to touch it. So this graph, this parabola, has one solution, and that solution is 7, 0. So my 0 of the function is 7. Or my one solution is x equals 7. Or you can list it as 7 comma 0, the ordered pair. All of those are ways of telling a person what the solution is for the graph. It tells us where it crosses or hits the x-axis. All right, so I've shown you a 2 solution, I've shown you a 1 solution. I wonder what this will be. No solution, yay! Okay, can you tell I'm a little tired and slap happy right now? My apologies. All right, letter C. Find the solutions of x squared plus 3x plus 7 equals 0. So first of all, graph the related function. Again, the related function just means we have f of x equals instead of 0 equals. And I know I'm being really annoying by saying that on every single slide, but hopefully that means that the annoyingness will help that information stick in your brains. Okay? So, graph the function x squared plus 3x plus 7, and you can see this is what the graph looks like. This graph never, ever touches that x-axis. So there are no solutions, or your book is going to be a little more technical, and they're not just going to say no solutions, they're going to say no real solutions. And the reason they're going to say no real solutions is because when you get to Algebra 2 in a couple of years, you're going to learn about something called an imaginary number. Fun fact, it has a little I with it to represent that it's an imaginary number. But alas, you are in Algebra 1, and we are not going to deal with imaginary solutions right now, okay? So you get to stick with just no real solutions whenever it doesn't hit the x-axis. A common error I see students make is if it doesn't hit the x-axis, they will overcompensate and tell me where it hits the y-axis instead. But honestly, I don't care where it hits the y-axis. I only care for solutions where it hits the x-axis. So you would need to say no real solutions here. And if you're asking me, do I really have to say no real solutions, or can I say no solutions? The answer is yes, you really have to say no real solutions. All right, example 2, solve quadratic equations using tables. We're not going to get super into this because you don't have graphing calculators, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But I want you to know how to tell what solutions are just by looking at a table. So how can you use a table to find solutions of x squared minus 7x plus 6 equals 0? So when you do get these nifty little, wow, I just aged myself by saying nifty, but these really great calculators in a couple of years where you can type in like x squared minus 7x plus 6 into your calculator, and it will graph it for you, and it will give you a table of values, and it's a really fantastic thing. Really a game changer in your math classes, but for now you don't have those. So you get a look at just tables, okay? So the way to tell if you have a solution from a table is you're looking for what x values give you a 0 for a y value. Any x values that give you a 0 for a y value are considered real solutions. So in this problem, you can see we have 2 zeros, so that means that I have 2 solutions. I have a solution when x equals 1, and I have a solution when x equals 6. Okay? So that's the other way that I want you to be able to tell me what solutions are. I want you to be able to identify from a table what solutions are. Okay? Then here is your fun little concept summary that summarizes the things that we've talked about in this lesson. The only other thing that I'm going to add to this slide is on your homework, you're going to get some questions about it's going to be some multiple choice questions asking you what solutions, like what graph matches with this. Something I'm going to remind you, a fast way to rule out 2 of your answers is to look whether it opens up or whether it opens down. Remember, if x squared is positive, you have a graph that opens upwards. If you have a negative with your x squared, that is going to open down. Okay, so that's a really fast way to help eliminate some of those answers on your multiple choice questions on your homework. Okay. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out for some help. I am happy to help you. Have a fantastic day.